Chapter 15. But the blast had not come from Cole's pistol. It seemed to have come from somewhere above, somewhere deep within the zeppelin. Cole himself looked startled and confused. Had the zeppelin been struck by lightning? Hugo looked out the windows, but he saw no clouds. What he could see were the faces of the men standing on the ground. They were gaping at the Hindenburg, their eyes wide with shock and horror. Some of the ground crew were actually sprinting away, as if they were running for their lives. And then came a violent jerk. The tail of the zeppelin suddenly dropped down, dumping Hugo and everyone else onto the floor. They all went sliding back, a wave of frantic people rolling around the sloping floor. Elbows jabbed at Hugo. A sharp heel kicked his forehead. Someone's knee pressed so hard on his neck he couldn't breathe. He wound up against the back wall, mashed behind at least 10 bodies and a jumble of overturned tables and chairs. He squirmed and rolled and pushed until he freed himself from the heap. But he had barely caught his breath when he glanced up toward the ceiling and saw something that made his blood freeze. It was a sight more terrifying than a cobra coiled in his bed or even a Nazi with a pistol. It was fire. Fire on an airship, filled with millions of cubic feet of flammable hydrogen gas. And then, with a thundering roar, the room exploded into flames. The blast of searing heat knocked Hugo back. His head hit the floor with a sickening thud. Odourly black smoke rushed up his nose and down his throat. Hugo gagged and coughed. His mind screamed in panic. Get out! Get out! Get out! In just seconds, the Hindenburg would burst into a giant ball of flames. Where were Mom and Dad and Gertie? People were running out of the lounge, screaming and shouting, Hurry! We're crashing! It's the end! Yes. Hugo felt as if he were caught in a stampede. Then someone grabbed Hugo by the back of his jacket and freed him from the crushing crowd. It was Mr. Singer, with Monty right behind him. Hugo had lost sight of them, but now Monty clamped hold of his hand as though she'd never let go. Hugo hoped she never would. Mr. Singer looked frantically around. This way, he said, pushing them both back toward the windows. Sir, I have to find my family, Hugo said. They'll find a way out, Hugo. And they want you to get out too. There isn't any time. Mr. Singer grabbed a toppled chair. Duck! He called out as he swung the chair up and smashed it against the windows. The glass shattered. They were close to the ground. Hugo could see about 15 feet up. Scraps of burning fabric filled the sky. It looked as if it were raining fire. He could see that some people from the zeppelin had already escaped. Sailors from the crew were braving the flames to help them get away. A young sailor stood just below them, looking up with open arms. Jump! He cried. Hurry! Mr. Singer helped Marnie climb up to the window ledge. Go! We'll be right behind you. Monty took one last look at Hugo and her father. Then she closed her eyes and leaped. The sailor caught her and ran away, carrying her in his arms. Your turn, Mr. Singer shouted to Hugo. But just then a dark shape appeared from out of the smoke. It was Cole. Hugo had been right. Nothing was going to stop Cole from finding his prey. And now he really did look like a vicious predator. There was blood dripping from a gash in his cheek. His eyes looked almost bright red, like his fury was boiling inside him. Cole pointed his pistol at Mr. Singer. This time, Hugo had no doubt he was going to shoot. "I know what you did," Cole bellowed, his voice rising up the crackling fire and the groaning of the airship. "Hand the papers over to me now!" Mr. Singer backed up until he was pressed against the wall. The zeppelin was shaking now, the flames churning all around them. It was almost impossible to breathe. With every second that went by, the chance to escape slipped further away. And then Hugo heard a terrifying noise. He looked up just in time to see a metal beam crashing through the ceiling, and it was heading right for them. Chapter 16. The beam came down like a flaming sword. Hugo fell back and rolled onto his side, bracing for the deadly crack of metal on his head. But the beam just missed him. It had missed Mr. Singer too, but Colonel Cole wasn't so lucky. The beam had landed across his neck. He lay there with his eyes open, motionless, his hand still gripping his gun. Hugo could see that Colonel Cole wouldn't ever be getting up again. But there was no time for Hugo to think about this. The airship was falling and breaking apart. His lungs felt as though they would explode. He and Mr. Singer both jumped up. They joined hands and lunged for the windows. Mr. Singer heaved Hugo out first. The zeppelin was so close to the ground that Hugo barely felt the impact. He landed on his stomach. Seconds later, Mr. Singer landed a few feet away. Hugo got up and turned to run, but something hit his back hard, and he suddenly realized it was too late. Chunks of the flaming Hindenburg were now crashing down around Hugo and Mr. Singer. The white-hot metal beams, the slabs of burning walls. Men shouted to them, "Hurry! Get up! Get up!" There was fire everywhere now, raining from the sky, rising from the ground, burning his clothes, his shoes, his hair. Hugo dropped to the ground and curled into a ball. There was no hope. His body erupted in scorching pain as the fire raked his flesh, and then Hugo couldn't feel anything. His mind went dark. His breathing stopped. But suddenly his brain flickered back to life, and Hugo felt sure that somehow he'd been dropped out of the burning Hindenburg and into the Sackle River. Cool water rushed all around him. The next thing he knew, he was lying on a soft blanket, with bright lights all around. Was he back in Kenya, under the golden sun? He heard voices calling for him. "Hugo! Hugo! Hugo!" in the loudest of them all. "Growl! Growl! Growl!"